Hi, and welcome back to Glassboxed, writing automated cucumber tests. Today we're going to have a look at passing parameters from a feature file to a step definition class. So we will look at how to define parameters in a feature file and why you would want to define parameters in a feature file. And then after we've passed those parameters, how to capture them in our step definitions class and then use them to do something with. So let's get started. So to demonstrate parameters, I have already written a feature file and some step definitions that go with this feature file. And let me quickly explain what is actually being automated. So what happens is the purpose of this feature file is just to check the page title for any given page. So what I've done is I've simply said for this particular scenario that I want to check the page title for the adoption page. So what I do is I open up a website, I navigate to the adoption link, I then check to make sure that the page title is adoption, and then I close the browser. And then I repeat the same scenario, but this time for the about page, doing the same thing, clicking on about and checking that the about page has the about title, and then exactly the same thing for the contact page. So let me demonstrate that on the site. So what I do is, for the first scenario, I click on adoption and then I check that the page title has adoption. Similarly, I click on about and then check it's got about, and same for the contact. So the scenario that I've automated isn't too complex. Now let's have a look at the step definitions. Right, so let me just expand that. Okay, so right, so at first glance you might think, wow, that's a lot of steps, and there are a lot of steps, because if you go back to our feature file, although the steps are similar in that, let's just say if we were to compare this when step to this when step, they're identical. The only difference is here we navigate to adoption and here we navigate to about. But because the steps are different, Cucumber asks its requirements are that we implement each step because they are two different steps. So if you have a look here, this is the when I navigate to the adoption step, and then here is when I navigate to the about step. So they are two different steps. So when I run this feature file, in fact I'll quickly run it. So what's happened is the first browser has opened, clicked on adoption, and now the second, and it's going to do the same thing and check the title, and finally the third, the same thing for the contact. And at the end we get this really nice printout where we said there were 3 scenarios at 12 steps in total and everything passed, which is fantastic. Now taking a closer look, as I said before, most of these steps are almost exactly the same. There's only a few differences, and because of these small differences we are having to almost duplicate the same step with a slight variation. And you can probably imagine if you kept on kind of following this principle of having a one-to-one relationship between a step and a definition, then that means your step definition files can exponentially grow over time, and that's really not what you want. What you want is to be able to write a step and then be able to reuse that definition for the step as many times as you can, as long as it matches the step. So a good example is this step. Given I am on the zoo website, this same step is repeated on all 3 scenarios, and it's exactly the same step. Hence we only need the one step, but the others differ. So what we're going to try and do is we're actually going to change this a bit, in that instead of hard coding in saying something like when I navigate to the adoption page, I'm going to do this time. I'm going to surround the word with double quotes. Now notice that when I did that, the word inside the double quotes changed in color, because this change in color when we have a double quote around a word which is inside the step is effectively identifying this particular word as a parameter in this step. So let me repeat that. When we surround a word in double quotes, what we're saying in this step is that the characters inside the double quotes is now treated as a parameter, and when we try to run this step alongside a step definition, it would pass this in as a parameter. So I hope that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to surround this with a parameter as well. Now let me explain why I've surrounded the adoption word as a parameter and not I navigate to, for instance. Well, if you have a look, if I just quickly kind of copy this here just so we can compare. See, notice that both steps are the same. They both have the same starting keyword, and they both have the same, if you like, first few words of the step. The only thing that differs is what we're actually trying to do, where we're trying to get to. So if we were to say do this, now if you think of it logically, since all of this is treated as a parameter, it's almost like saying there's nothing there, if you like, because it's a parameter, and the same can be said for here. Now both of these steps are exactly the same. They do exactly the same thing. They might be treated differently when we write the step definition for it, but as far as the step is concerned, it's exactly the same. So let's undo that and get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to surround all of the words which I think are, if you like, keywords to a step, without altering the construct of the step, so that the steps are universally the same, only the keywords are different. In this case, keywords are the parameters of the step. So now if you have a look in our feature file, strictly nothing's really changed. The only thing we've done is we've just added in double quotes to try and identify parameters. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to our step definition file, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and remove all of the step definitions. In fact, I won't do that. What I'll do is I'll comment all the step definitions out. We'll keep that there. That won't really make a difference. So now if I run this, naturally the step definitions are missing, so we'll get that pending step errors. So let's just run that. Perfect. So now notice we only have 4 pending steps. However, there are 12. So let me demonstrate what I mean. So if I remove all the quotes and try and run this, see, earlier I was saying that because all of the steps are at this point in time different, what Cucumber will try and do is it will try and match a step definition to every given step. So if I run the feature file, we get pending, but notice that we get a pending for each and every single one. In fact, we've got 12 steps, all of which are undefined. However, when we add in the quotes and run it, we now only get, again, 12 undefined, but there's only 4 which Cucumber has given us. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy these into our step definition file. I'm still going to keep the rest as commented out, and I'm going to change this to and I am going to get rid of all of this. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is just change these names so that they're a little bit more meaningful. So should navigate to Sue. Okay, should click on well, something. In fact, I'm going to do it right first time. This method should click on, yes, something, and that something is provided here as a regex string pattern. Now I hope that you're familiar with regex. If not, I guess going forward I can probably do a quick video on it. But what regex effectively is it defines string patterns, and it allows a method to accept a string as long as it conforms to a pattern. So here, this might look a bit confusing. In other words, there's an open bracket, there's a power sign, there's a backslash, quote, star, well, multiply sign, I suppose. All of these, when added together, conform to a regex pattern, and this regex pattern is effectively saying accept any string, whether it's numbers, spaces, upper characters, lower characters, so on. I don't want to dwell on this too much, but what effectively happens is we're using this pattern to basically identify that this, whatever this parameter that's passed in is a parameter, and this gets translated to this string here. So now if we were to call this string link, we can now use this information. So similarly, now if I just complete this method saying navigate to link, whatever link it is that we provide, here what I'm going to say is check page title, and again this is whatever parameters passed in by the feature file. So I'm just going to call this title, and here we just close the browser. So I'm just going to say close browser. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some information from here. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this into our given. All this does is this opens a new Firefox empty browser and then navigates to our site. Here I am going to click on a link that I provide in as a parameter in the step, and this is effectively this. So let's have a look. So here where I say driver.find element by ID so on so on so on so on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at my site, and I'm going to see if there's anything else I can use other than ID. If there isn't, then it doesn't really matter. I just want to see if there is anything. Okay, so it has a name, it has a H reference, and it has an ID. So I suppose I'll probably just stick to ID just for simplicity's sake. So what I'll do now is I'm going to change this to link, and as part of the step navigate to, I'm going to punch in the ID over there. So this should now be called adoption underscore link. Now ideally this isn't actually good practice. You shouldn't have IDs. It's always best to use well, simple English as opposed to underscore English. The reason I'm doing this is because my site doesn't have anything that I can use right now that brings a lot of meaning. But the focus of this video is to show the power of parameters, not necessarily to show clean English, if you like. Okay, So the same can be said for this now. It's going to be about underscore link, and this will probably be contact underscore link. In fact, I'm just going to quickly check if that's true. So it's where are we? It's adoption underscore link, about, and contact underscore link. Okay. So what we've done here is we've implemented the step definition for one step definition, but by osmosis what's happened is this one step definition is now mapped to 3 different steps, because we're passing in a parameter. We're not passing in any hard-coded value anymore. We're now going to do the same for the next step definition, which is here. So in this case, again, I'm just going to be a little lazy and just copy this really quickly. So here all I'm saying is assert true that the title of the page contains whatever. So in this case I'm just going to copy title in. Now luckily title is as it is in the step file. It's just in plain English, i.e. if I quickly show you, so the title here has home, it's got about, and this has contact. There's no kind of underscoring. So this is what I was basically trying to demonstrate, the fact that it'd be nice if we just have plain English as opposed to some kind of if you like, syntactical English. So okay, let's go back, and in my last close browser I am quite literally just closing the browser. Okay, so what have we done now? Well, the given step hasn't really changed, but that's fine because our given step was never repeated. Our close browser step hasn't changed, but again that's fine because that was never repeated. But the other steps we had, each one for going to home and then clicking and then checking the title, and then same for adoption and so on. So we had get rid of these. So we had a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different steps, which I've now translated to just 2 steps. And also notice that say our website grew over time, so we added in many more links. Let's just say for the sake of argument we added in another maybe 3 links. If we had still followed not taking this parameter approach, then we would have inevitably had to have written another 12 step definitions, one for each step. But because we are using this parameter perspective, we don't need to add in any single step definitions. The only thing we actually have to do is just to write a step for it with the right parameter passed to it. So let's put our money where our mouth is and run this, and this time we're expecting exactly the same result as of when we first ran the test, but this time we expect the same test to work fully, but using very few step definitions. So I'm just gonna right click, run as, run feature, and let's see what happens. So it's opened up the first browser, clicked on adoption and closed it. It's opened the second, clicked on about, and it's done the same thing with contact. Right, so if we have a look at the results, I'm not going to dig into this too much. If you've been watching all of my videos, this all should be very obvious by now. But the main thing is that we have 100% test pass rate. So what we've done is, in this video, we haven't really done a lot of techie thing in that compared to our old videos. We've done a really small change in that for our steps, we now have added in this formality of passing parameters by identifying a word using double quotes. And then in our step definition, we are using regex to identify whatever we pass in as a string and assign that to some parameter or argument, if you like, that the method is expecting, and then use that uh, to universally be able to handle any other similar methods. And what this allows us to do is that it allows us to write effectively the same step, but using different parameters we're able to perform the same action but in different places of our web application. So this is a very small change, but I'm sure you'll agree it's a really powerful change. It really gives us more control uh, in terms of maintainability. Um, think of it this way: if you had the choice of uh, maintaining either a feature file or a step definition file, which would you rather have to maintain over time? Which would you rather have to go back and revisit over time? Uh, I hope your answer is feature file, because it's easier to change things in the feature file. It's easier to manage. It's easier to understand. Step definition files can be confusing because there's a lot of logic involved. If you have various methods inherited from other base classes, or you have methods which are part of a library, it can get confusing quickly. But if you're just changing a step, I mean, all you do is just change a step. It's really, to me, it's a no-brainer. For a Cucumber framework, I'd always be happy to manage a feature file over step definition files if there is a need to manage a feature file over step definition file. And that's it for this video, folks. I hope you enjoy my videos, and I hope they bring you some new knowledge and insight into writing Cucumber tests. If they do, then please subscribe and rate. As always, if you have any questions or video suggestions, then please leave a comment below. Many thanks for watching. Until next time, ciao!